Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're enjoying the summer. I'm sure my co-host, Christina Nicolaou, is enjoying it in Athens. How are you, Christina?
I'm very, very well, Daniel. Looking forward to going off to Naxos Island, continue working from there for a bit.
That's your classic holiday, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. We need to have some episodes recorded from Naxos. Otherwise, it's not summer.
You know what? I was thinking I'd love to go somewhere like close to the beach to work remotely. So maybe I'm happy to look into it. I'll write you later on WhatsApp.
The FMCG Guys retreat on.
I mean, you'd probably kick me out of the house after one day. You'd be like annoyed by me and my loud voice, probably. So I don't know.
It will be a very creative summer. So you're welcome to come.
Okay, well, I'll ask you about it later. I'm going to go to south of Spain and for a week, and that's it. So I'm pretty open. But I already went on holiday in April. But look, working remotely could be an idea. Anyway, so I was thinking before, Christina, do you remember like 10 years ago when a lot of FMCG companies were talking about disrupting themselves? Do you remember that?
Yes, disrupting from within and the whole creative disruption part. A lot of talks about entrepreneurship and how they can build this kind of culture, right?
Yeah, and I think that today we'll speak to a leader of a company that's definitely disrupted itself in the last decade, Philip Morris. How have you seen the evolution from the sidelines, Christina?
Well, I have to say that it's definitely one that gets referenced quite a bit. Philip Morris has had quite a few successful parts of the model done right when it comes to, first of all, the culture internally, to be able to really say that we're going to do something different, and I will leave it at different, and as well as on the approach to the consumer, because the experience that the consumers are getting is also something that's completely different, not just the product. So I'm very, very keen to have this discussion today and learn more about their journey.
Yeah, so today we're accompanied by the man that's in charge of leading their heated tobacco alternative, IQOS. It's no other than Stefano Volpetti, who's the president of smoke-free products and chief consumer officer at Philip Morris International. Hey, Stefano, how are you?
Good afternoon. Well, good to be here with you guys. I'm looking forward for the discussion.
And you told us that you're enjoying the female football Euro Cup in Switzerland this summer, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, indeed. Fascinating.
There's not many like these tournaments. Sorry, Christina, I'm gonna geek a bit about football now, but these tournaments like the Euros and the World Cup, they used to be played in small companies like Switzerland. Now they look for very big countries or even multiple countries. So it's a bit of old football romanticism even to see like international football tournament be played in a 15,000 people stadium.
It's fantastic. Can't wait to go tonight.
Well, and I wish your Italian team good luck. But let's go into it. Stefano, you're in Philip Morris now, but you grew up like my dear co-host Christina, you grew up in Procter & Gamble. Tell us a bit about how did you end up in FMCG, first of all?
I would say my school of consumer centricity has been my father Italian gourmet food shop. So he used to own a shop, and I used to work in the shop when I was young. And that has been my first school of consumer centricity. Then from there, I went to university, and the university, I developed a passion for the most difficult companies to work in. And for sure, P&G was one of those. And I entered P&G that I was a young student, and I exited that I was a vice president of the business unit. So in 22 years, quite a transformation. And I'm very thankful because it's a company that has shaped both my professional life, but also my personal life. So phenomenal experience.
And was that mainly in commercial roles that you did in those 22 years?
I started in marketing roles. I've done sales roles, and then all the way to become the leader of a global business unit of a category. And I worked in different places around the world, Italy, Germany, then Switzerland, then Mexico, and then back in Europe again. I worked mostly in two categories: the baby care category and the beauty care category, and I learned a lot. It's been really a transformational journey from a personal and professional standpoint.
I think, Daniel, we have discussed also in other podcasts that also one of the metrics where P&G has a great success rate is export of great talent. And that's one of those cases where you have someone who really learns and grows and develops and goes off to do great things. So tell us
Christina,
a little bit.
are you talking about Stefano or about yourself?
Primarily myself, as you recruited me. But now back to Stefano. How did you end up in the big tobacco business?
That's a very good question. I'm not a smoker. I'm a health freak. And the first time PMI called me, I really thought they had the wrong number because tobacco was absolutely not part of my life. But I mean, I've been now 6 years in PMI. And 7 years ago when we talked, I understood by meeting the key people in the company that this company was very serious about having a purpose of completely disrupting this industry and transform the industry from tobacco, cigarettes to providing smokers with smoke-free alternatives that are scientifically substantiated to be better. So I could see the purpose of the company, but also I could see the determination of the company. When you look at a company that has invested more than $8 billion before shipping the first case of these new products, that's a commitment. So the combination of purpose and commitment was fundamental for me, plus finding in the company leaders that are very human, empathic, very pragmatic, risk takers with courage. In these 6 years, I've experienced all of that, and it's been a fantastic journey. And the journey continues because there is a lot to do ahead of us.
And how did it work? Sounds easy, but like the process of like disrupting a company with a legacy of decades and decades of selling cigarettes and then going to something new. And I think, with hindsight, doing it in the right way, because I think that you guys are a big success story.
So, I mean, probably I give you a post-rationalization of how we went, since we have now the advantage of being 11 years in this game. But think about a company with a history of 178 years. 178 years of history. A company that 11 years ago started to commercialize the smoke-free alternatives that therefore disrupted the business from a B2B business to a B2C business. And I would say even more, not only B2C, but this is a business of not just selling products to consumers. This is a business of changing a ritual that is much deeper, a ritual that has physical connotation, emotional connotation, rational connotation, irrational connotations. So it's a deep change from consumer standpoint, but it's also a deep change from a capabilities standpoint. When you are commercializing smoke-free alternatives, the level of scientific substantiation, the level of life science studies, the level of technology, consumer electronics is completely different versus the previous business. Hence, the consumer, the capabilities, the culture have completely changed. Now, the success has been phenomenal. If you think that 11 years after starting to sell the first product in Nagoya, Japan, and Milan, Italy, 11 years after, we are in more than 90 markets around the world with smoke-free alternatives. We have about 40 million users of smoke-free alternatives. 75% of them have completely left cigarettes behind. And very importantly, the revenue of the smoke-free alternatives now account for more than 40% of the global revenue of the company. And we have 25 markets around the world where the revenue of the company is more than 50% in smoke-free alternatives. So this is enormous change of a magnitude and speed that probably has never seen before. There are not many
it's science fiction.
Yeah. There are not many businesses that can go from zero to more than 10 billion revenue, and we passed significantly the 10 billion revenue in 10 years. If you put it on a graph, you will find a few other businesses that have been able to do that. Not many of them are profitable. So we combine both sides of the equation. We have purpose.
With building all these capabilities. Yeah.
Correct. And when you put together purpose, growth, and success, this is a magical combination.
And we're talking about the magical combination here. We're referencing also all the time the disruption and the product. Let's explain this to our listeners, please, a little bit. Tell us a little bit, what is IQOS?
But I would say I would go beyond just IQOS. So the portfolio I manage is a portfolio of smoke-free alternatives. These are alternatives to cigarettes that these smoke-free alternatives all have in common one fil rouge. And the fil rouge is that all eliminate combustion from the use of nicotine. And by eliminating combustion, it eliminates 95% of the impactful substances. And therefore, these smoke-free alternatives are scientifically substantiated to be better than continued smoking. Our position as a company is very clear. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. And by change, we mean change to smoke-free alternatives. These smoke-free alternatives, by eliminating combustion, they provide smokers with a much better choice vis-a-vis continued smoking traditional cigarettes.
Regarding IQOS, which I think is like your flagship product, I'm interested to know, like from a brand building perspective, and because there's other smoking alternatives by other big tobaccos, alternative products. There's a couple of things. One is on the technology side, why there was this bet on heated tobacco that it works so well from Philip Morris. And the second part is like how you've positioned it as a brand to be something actually recognizable and not only a commodity.
Yeah. So from a technology standpoint, here the challenge was to design a product that does not contain combustion, still delivers an experience to the smoker that is satisfactory, but eliminates all the bad impact related to combustion. Now, doing that as a brief is easier said than done. So here there's been a significant amount of technology when it comes to different aspects of the product. The product is a combination of a device and a consumable. So working out, being able to provide an experience that is as similar as possible from an experience standpoint to a traditional cigarette, but at the same time an experience that does not entails combustion is a very fine technological type of innovation, both in the consumer electronic side and in the consumable side. We have found the right balance. Meaning that being able to design a product that does not combust tobacco, so the tobacco gets heated, and by heating the tobacco, we are able to provide a sensorial experience to the smoker that is satisfactory for them to be able to make the switch from cigarettes to smoke-free alternatives. And by making this switch, clearly they make a better choice because these are products that are scientifically substantiated to be better. Finding that balance has been difficult. From a technology standpoint, a significant amount of breakthrough have been achieved, but also the level of consumer centricity needed to do that has been at the highest level, because every aspect of the product, from how the product feels on your lips, to how long the product lasts, to how many puffs you take, all of the aspects of the products have been designed with a smoker in mind. Okay, so the duration is a duration similar to a cigarette. The number of puffs are similar to a cigarette. The feeling of the filter, the paper filter on your lips is very similar to a cigarette. So it's all designed to transition the smoker that otherwise would continue to smoke traditional cigarettes to a smoke-free alternatives that by eliminating combustion is clearly better than continuous smoking. So finding that right balance was not easy from a product standpoint, but more importantly, beyond the product, as I was saying before, this is not a business of selling a product. This is, we are really on a journey of changing a ritual. And when you change a ritual, there is much more than just a product. There is the rational side, the emotional side, the information side. There is the coaching that we provide to smokers, and the support that we provide to smokers in the first weeks of the change. There is the full ecosystem we deploy, from boutiques to customer care. So it's a full ecosystem that is being created for us to be able to accompany the smoker in this transition. And this is probably the most successful thing we do, because 75% of the users have completely left cigarettes behind. And we have close to 40 million users around the world. So these are very significant numbers. So the right product, an ecosystem that helps smokers to transition from cigarettes to smoke-free alternatives, and then a brand that has enough credibility. Because each one of us, when we want to change a habit, we tend to procrastinate that moment and delay that moment of changing a ritual. So having a brand that is credible, that has empathy, but at the same time it sends a message of a new lifestyle, is very important, because it helps the smokers to progress in this journey to smoke-free alternatives.
Yeah, Stefano, thank you so much for sharing this. I have to say, we're talking about this a little bit earlier as well, that also in the overall FMCG world, there have been quite a few discussions I've been part of, where the whole model of PMI with the experience, rather, the product is a product, but the experience, the after-sales service, and the whole program with the ambassadors and the whole experience on the boutiques, I think is really what has made this innovation, set apart from other kind of disruptive innovations or tech innovations that we have seen in the past. So tell us a little bit more also on the educating part, because as you said, that it's really about changing a ritual, creating a different kind of like habit. So how do you try and meet the consumers? Where are these consumers? Is it just the kiosks or the vending machines? What is the whole relationships with them?
So as we said before, we design a product that provides an experience that is satisfactory for the smokers, but at the same time is a product that is scientifically substantiated to be better. We have an ecosystem that helps smokers to navigate from cigarettes to smoke-free alternatives, and we have a brand that has enough credibility, enough scientific substantiation. At the same time, it sends a message of lifestyle change that is very important. So we have these three components, and I think the most important step we do is to put the consumer at the center. Okay, and when you talk to smokers, they've been told 1,000 times from family members, from doctors, and from many people to stop smoking. They've been told 1,000 times. So reminding smokers that they're doing something bad is not a strategy. We are in the mission of providing them smoke-free alternatives that help them to make a different choice. Okay, so the first step is really the one of providing information about the smoke-free alternatives, and as much as possible provide choice, meaning that if the three of us want to change a ritual in our private life, if we are told to do one thing, or if we are told to choose between 2-3 alternatives that we could pick, the success rate of when you have alternatives in front of you is much higher than when you just have one solution. So here is all about providing the right information about the benefits and the risk of the products, but also explaining the different smoke-free categories that they can access, and making sure that they have a moment to make that choice between the different categories, all of them being a better alternative than continuous smoking. As they enter that phase of conversion, we need to remember we are in a regulated industry. So most of our communication has to be one-to-one. It's very important for us to make sure we are talking to smokers. It's very important for us to age verify the smokers to make sure we're talking to legal age smokers. But the journey of conversion is mostly a one-to-one journey that can start online, can start in a boutique, can start in a store. But it's a journey over time. It's not a journey that happens from one day to the other suddenly. And accompanying the smokers in that journey of conversion is a very important part of the success. So whether we accompany them with a digital coach or with a physical coach, or where we accompany them through our boutiques, to our customer care, or in any interactions we have, we use clearly a full ecosystem to make sure that that journey of conversion happens. Because the faster that journey of conversion happens, the better it is. Because if they continue to use cigarettes on one side, they don't get the benefits of the better alternatives. On the other side, every time they use a cigarette, they get reminded of the taste of a cigarette and the experience of a cigarette.
It's interesting that you're talking basically around, you call it one-to-one, but you could also call it experiential selling or experiential marketing, which is interesting because with all the noise that we get from all these ads everywhere, et cetera, there is a school of thought that says that for non-regulated products, they'll have to follow this path of experiential marketing as well. So interestingly, I think this is a good way of learning for other consumer industries of like how IQOS has built its brand. Yeah.
And it's all about really providing an experience to the smokers, an experience that helps them to remove the barriers, both at sensorial level, emotional level, rational level, the barriers of engaging into a new category. But it's also interesting that when you do that, you learn lots of things. In the first, if you take before COVID, we were mostly using physical coaches. Because of COVID, we had to repurpose our entire ecosystem into digital coaches. And digital coaches, they've proven to be even more successful than physical coaches. Because you can talk to them any time of the day, the night, any time of the week. You have much more direct experience. So there are many things that we learned across these years that really go in the direction of what you were saying before, that the experience that accompanies the product and the experience that accompanies a ritual change is the biggest part of the success.
And do you think we're in a point of status quo in terms of like, so you have tobacco, you have the current alternatives, electronic, non-electronic. Do you think that this will be kind of the status quo, or do you think that IQOS or your other products in your portfolio will continue innovating in one way or the other?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is, we are just at despite it's 11 years, we are just scratching the surface of the potential we have. Around the world, there are 1.1 billion smokers. And we have been very successful to convert 40 million of them. So there is a long way to go. So there is innovation that, of course, comes from a consumer experience standpoint. There is innovation that comes from a brand standpoint. There is innovation that comes from a product standpoint. But also you need to think at the trajectory of development of a category. At the beginning, you really talk to the early adopters. Then you start to get more penetration into the category. You need to provide more alternatives in terms of flavor experience, in terms of sensorial experience. You also need to provide different alternatives when it comes to the level of pricing that you have on devices and consumables. So we are at the beginning of that phase. Our advantage is that by being more than in 90 markets, we have those that started 11 years ago and those that started last week. But we know already which trajectory each of the market will follow because we have enough experience. So if you take the first markets where we started, Japan and Italy, the category, if you take Japan, is already more than 50% of the market. So more than 50, close to 10 million Japanese.
Across the board.
Yes, close to 10 million smokers in Japan have switched to smoke-free alternatives. 50% of the category is already volume-wise in smoke-free alternatives. This means that at least 75% of the smokers have tried these products. If you take that market that started 11 years ago and you take a market that started last week, of course, the trajectory of the moment of development of the category is very different one from the other. But having the history of how the category developed in places like Japan, Italy, Korea, Greece, the first places where we went, is very important because it gives us a good understanding of the different steps that the category will take in developing. Then every local market is different, but having that notion of having it done in more than 90 markets helps us a lot to understand how the category will evolve. Since this is a category in creation, and since this is a category that is about changing a ritual, having the pulse of the consumers is the most important thing. And if you take the level of innovation of the last 11 years, in 11 years on IQOS only, we deployed 7 different new technologies in 11 years. So that makes it one every 18 months. So we have been busy. And mostly because when you get feedback from about 40 million consumers, you have quite a good understanding of what's working, what's not working. And we continue to make sure that the technology stays a state of the art, but also we work a lot on the experience and on the brand to make sure that these 3 components play in favor of these smoke-free alternatives.
But hearing you speak about the trajectory, because it seems like huge, right? I wonder, how does it fit into the whole company strategy? And I cannot get out of my mind what that first meeting must have been like to the board. Hey, I have an idea, let's get these tobacco companies smoke-free. So where are you on the journey? What is it that you want to do in the company?
Okay, so today it's easy. Because today we are already above 40% of the revenues in smoke-free. We have a target for 2030, and by 2030 we will be more than 2/3 of the company revenue in smoke-free. Okay.
Very impressive.
Consider that today our best markets are already above 80% smoke-free. Okay, so we have a vision for global revenue to be more than 2/3 smoke-free, so more than 66% smoke-free. But already today, we know that vision can be real because we have few markets already today that are 80% smoke-free. So that's the trajectory. On how did we start, I give you the real story versus the...
Please do.
The real story is that even in a company of 80,000 employees and 178 years of history, you can count on the fingers of one hand the number of people that started to work on this at the very beginning, already before year 2000. They brought this all the way to a product that was marketable in 2014. And then in 2015, our CEO went out and declared that we were going smoke-free. And when you go out and declare that we are going smoke-free, it means there's no way back. And since then, the trajectory has been a trajectory of every quarter, every year, growth of smoke-free alternatives all the way to more than 40% of the revenues today. But the reality is, even in a company of 80,000 employees, a nucleus of people that you can literally count on the fingers of one hand, defined that change, went out, declared it, and that once you go out and declare, there's no way back. The best internal communication is when you go out to the world and you declare they're going one direction.
But I guess you have both the courage and the safe space to do that, and which is critical in order to be able, to get this spark going.
And listen, if I were to say my biggest observation in my first 6 years in PMI, and before I've been 22 years in P&G, is that this is a company with an incredible courage. And courage means bold choices, means people take accountability for bold choices. Mm-hmm. This means that behind those choices, there is everything. That is talent, there is technology, there is investments, there is scientific substantiation. So I would say the trait of a company that can make this incredible disruptive change is it always starts with courage. And this is a very courageous company.
I remember seeing Marianne Salzman speaking at OMR in 2018. I was within the audience. I actually asked her a bit of a challenging question, but I think that back then even it was still pretty skeptical. But I think something that PMI did, I think European pioneers with this, was like to be very explicit and be very direct and very matter of fact with it. And you're like being big tobacco, as you said, you can't go back on it because you know that a lot of people will be very happy if you will go back on it. So I do appreciate that.
But also it starts from a fundamental conviction. And the fundamental conviction is when you have in your hands a product that is scientifically substantiated to be better, our responsibility, our purpose is to make sure that as fast as possible, we can convert to that product those smokers that otherwise will continue to smoke traditional cigarettes. And so for us, the way we interpret our role is totally driven by a purpose. And purpose is each day that we convert smokers that otherwise will continue to smoke cigarettes to smoke-free alternatives, we're doing the right thing. The faster we do it, the better it is, because more and more people will benefit of smoke-free alternatives that do not include combustion, and therefore they're clearly scientifically substantiated to be better. So that sense of urgency, knowing that you have in your hands a product that is significantly better from a scientific substantiation standpoint versus a continuous smoking traditional cigarettes, that conviction gives you all the courage to go for purpose-driven transformation. And this is at the core of the PMI trajectory of the past 10 years.
And how is this change in business model, this change in mentality, how is that reflected on like the company culture? How has that changed, at least from your observations in the years that you've been there?
But listen, the biggest change is that you move the business from B2B to B2C. And when you are in B2C and B2C in a business that is a ritual change business, the level of consumer centricity, the level of curiosity about the consumers, the level of understanding of the consumers has to be at the highest levels. So when I moved from P&G to PMI, I thought in P&G we had all the consumer understanding of this world. That's a trait of the company. But I came here and I found absolutely the same level of understanding and the same level of standardization of consumer data, consumer journeys, and the way we interpret the data across the 90 plus markets in which we are. But the biggest factor is the culture of consumer centricity. Knowing the consumer inside out is a fundamental part of the culture of the company. And this is the biggest element of success when you move from a B2B to a B2C business, even more when you move to a business that is a ritual change business.
I love how you discussed at the beginning about you joining the company, how all those elements of the courage and the purpose and their commitment actually got you to join them. And I wonder, how is this whole culture enabling you also to attract good talent in a world that's actually, quite hard and competitive to get the best?
I would have never imagined after the first conversation that I would join Philip Morris. Never. But when you understand and you understand the benefits of the product, the smoke-free alternatives, when you understand the key leaders of the company and their mission to really realize a smoke-free future, you suddenly move from, I really don't want to do this, to I must do this, because if I don't join this, there's no neutral choice. Either you say, I am pushing smoke-free alternatives and I provide a better choice to smokers around the world, or you say, I don't do this. This means let smokers continue to smoke traditional cigarettes. There's no neutral choice on this. And so I went from, oh my God, why are we talking? To, oh wow, I absolutely need to do this because I can see the potential of this proposition from a product, experience, brand standpoint. And I can see how with the commitment, the investment, and the culture of PMI, this can become a reality. And I have to say, in these 6 years, things have been progressing much faster than I thought.
Stefano, this wouldn't be a regular FMCG Guys episode. I mean, it's not a regular FMCG Guys episode because every episode is different, no? But we have this question that we ask all our guests, which is, with everything that you've learned in your career, if you had to go back to your younger self as you were starting out at P&G, what would be that one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh, no doubts. To follow a career with purpose. These 6 years have been by far the most exciting of my career because day in, day out, I'm delivering on a purpose. And the purpose is to provide smokers with choices that are clearly better and they are scientifically substantiated to be better. So this purpose has a direct connection with the level of satisfaction that I get in my job, no doubt.
This was Stefano Volpetti, President of Smoke-Free Products and Chief Consumer Officer at Philip Morris International. Christina, what are your key takeaways?
What a disruptive conversation in my head, Daniel. I mean, what they have managed to achieve within their core business, it's truly incredible. 40% of their revenues already globally.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. We should have a look if there's any brand. It's not really a brand. It's a category more than a brand. This is like IQOS, which is a big brand, but then there's some other brands that's grown so much to this type of revenue in so few time. There must be some other one, but it's very few.
Yeah, it must be very few. The only thing I have in mind is also Nespresso. But I don't know whether in terms of scale, it's the equivalent of the disruption of the coffee business.
And also on running. And there's Swiss-based companies, now that I think of it, interestingly.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point. But anyhow, I think for me, one of the key takeaways would definitely be the cultural aspect. So how a few courageous people essentially manage to develop something completely new and go pitch it. And then suddenly you would see how a whole industry is changing and how you have this safe space for people to actually be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that Philip Morris got it really right with that, with like going kind of, I mean, I'm sure it was a calculated move, but from a communication standpoint, they kind of went all in from one day to the next with this very clear messaging and being also very open. And I think it set them up from the rest. It's not easy because it's a super prickly terrain, but I think and the proof is in the pudding. No, I think they've done very well with it, not only from a business standpoint, but also from a reputational standpoint.
100%. And for me, another part which I hadn't really given it enough thought so far, it's not just how they have revolutionized, if you want, the product, but also the business model. So, because it was a complete turnaround on how they do business. They went from B2B to a B2C model. This gives you completely different positioning with regards to your consumer. And that's something that, at least to my knowledge, was not existing before in the industry. And of course, like from a professional also point of view, where I find it as a best practice really is how they have worked through the triptych of product, ecosystem, and brand coming all together to provide this experience to the user.
And what I really thought was very interesting was the fact that being in a regulated environment has made them really have to lean in a lot on this experiential marketing one-to-one. And I think that other consumer brands, not because of regulatory issues, some actually also because of regulatory issues like high sugar and so on. But I think it's just like from the space and the media being so overcrowded, I think they'll also have to go more towards experiential marketing.
Yeah, overall, when you are facing kind of like a constraint or there is something that's obstructing you, the natural response would be, how do I solve this problem in a different way? And ultimately, you get more creative. So it's worked very much well for them. And it's one of the things that other companies need to take a learning from.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting. He talked about like Philip Morris having a big level of consumer understanding, and it was very comparable to Procter & Gamble. I thought that was pretty outstanding. I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting that either, but I think that Stefano didn't expect that when he was starting the company, right?
Yeah, totally. Fantastic. Well, Christina, another great episode in the bag. So here we go. Have a nice rest of your summer, and we'll see you soon, I guess.
See you soon, Daniel.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG, guys. Have a great one.